Hey guys, Pete here. This will be a Better Call Saul Season 5, Episode 4 trailer breakdown and preview. AMC Networks put out a proper trailer for the 4th episode and a sneak peek video, so I thought I would take a closer look at those. I'm not sure if this will be a regular thing, but I have some free time this week and I'm definitely thinking about Better Call Saul. Spoiler warning, this video will contain spoilers for everything that's happened in Better Call Saul up until this point, and the original series Breaking Bad as it is a prequel. I will also be speculating about the future of the season based on information that's out there in the world, out there in the media. So if you don't like that kind of stuff, this video won't be for you. I will break down the episode 4 trailer scene by scene and discuss what all of it might mean for the rest of the season. And then I'll discuss some interesting things and a few questions that people have been asking about the last episode. Episode 4 is titled Namaste, and the episode description reads, as Jimmy doubles down on Saul Goodman, a deeply conflicted Kim brings him an interesting proposition. Gus makes a sacrifice to play the long game. Mike attempts to smooth things over with his family. The trailer opens with a shot of Jimmy adjusting his ring. This is the ring that he got from Marco, his good friend back from Cicero, that he got after his death in the finale of season 1. He's worn it throughout the series as Jimmy and Saul. We see it throughout Breaking Bad as well, but not in the Gene timeline where he's trying not to be identified. The first time we saw him do this, adjust the ring, was in the finale of season 1, where he decides not to go inside the courthouse to meet with Davis and Maine right at the very end. The trajectory of that decision sort of changed as season 2 developed from what I understand, but the ring is still a reminder of his connection to Slip and Jimmy and his trying to be a respectable lawyer, which we saw him do as Chuck was still alive through seasons 2 and 3. I think opening the trailer with it here is a fun callback, and I imagine that he's contemplating doing something he knows he won't be able to take back. He's got something that he's thinking about, he knows that he's going to do it, but just needs that moment to reflect on the fact that things are going to be different after he does. Based on the little bit that we see in this trailer, my best guess is that this takes place before he enters the courtroom, which we'll get to later. For me, the most interesting thing in this trailer is this next scene of Howard and Jimmy having lunch. In their conversation, Howard says, "Tell me about Saul Goodman. What's he about?" This is interesting because Howard seems to have a genuine interest in this new persona. And that makes me wonder if HHM might have a use for a lawyer like this. Of course, the Sandpiper case should still be ongoing, and that connects Jimmy and Howard. But this scene hints to me that there may be more going on, and I'm very interested to see how Howard's story plays out since we know he's not really around in the Breaking Bad timeline. After that, we have a shot of Hank. He has binoculars. He's probably scouting the dead drop location that Crazy 8 gave him in the last episode. For what it's worth, showrunner Peter Gould made it clear in the show's Insider podcast that episode 4 is the last one where Hank will appear in this season. Here we see him scouting, and later we get a similar shot of him where he's pointing a gun at something, and we can see Gomie in the background in the passenger seat. Later there's an overhead shot of a police vehicle driving into a drainage pipe, and so it looks like we'll be getting to see the DEA in action. Whatever happens here, my hope is that we get a nice conclusion to their involvement that leaves the door open to bringing back Hank and Gomie again if it makes sense for the story. A lot of that will have to do with how they handled the time jumps necessary to get us to the Breaking Bad timeline. We've still got 4 years between where we are now and when the events of Breaking Bad Season 1 occur, which leaves things wide open in that regard. We see Jimmy in different points of this trailer. We see him in a police department conference / interrogation room. Based on the bail has been denied sneak peek video they put out there, he's probably talking to the 50% off guys here. We hear him say, "You twerps even know who I am." Later, we hear him say, "I'm the real deal." So he's trying to sell himself for some reason. And while they don't give much away in that sneak peek with the 50% off guys, I think the big takeaway from this is this was Jimmy's plan. He was planning on working with people like this, low-level criminals who are constantly getting in trouble and that he can make some money off of. And what I think is interesting in the whole situation is he was planning on this, but we saw what he got in the last episode when he gets pulled in by Nacho and Blingy to go see Lalo. He's going to be dealing with people that he's uncomfortable with. It's not really what he had in mind, but that's where this kind of work leads him. We see him in the courtroom, which I mentioned earlier. We see a judge there, and she says, "Oh, Mr. Mr. Goodman, so I feel like he's going to do something memorable in that situation. I'm not sure if those are the 50% off clients. It could be anybody. He's got a lot of clients. We know that. But I have a feeling that this is going to be one of the more memorable sequences of this episode. There is another random shot of Jimmy. He's pulling on a baseball cap in a vehicle at night. I'm not sure what car he's in. It could be Kim's, but it's definitely not his Esteem. We can tell that. It's a nicer car. This could be just about anything. He may be having to be there to report to Nacho what happened or something like that. I don't think he's involved in any meaningful way. We get a little bit of Gus in this. We see him at a fryer pulling up the baskets. There's a Los Pollos employee next to him who I don't think is Lyle. Everybody remembers Lyle from previous seasons. I think it's a different employee. That later we see him breaking a burner phone in his office where he looks angry. So that's probably in relation to what Lalo's doing, but we can't really make much out of what we see in this trailer. There's another shot of Jimmy leaving the conference room at the police station. He says, "I'm coming out," and the guard comes to let him out the door. And then the episode 4 trailer closes with a shot of Hank and Gomie approaching the dead drop with guns drawn and flashlights in their hands. The one thing I think about in relation to their story is they said their deal with Domingo Crazy 8 would be contingent on making an arrest, or arrests as Hank put it. So I'm wondering who will get caught up in this. It feels pretty well established that Gus doesn't really care about the money as much as he cares about dealing with Lalo. So it'll be interesting to see how this whole situation plays out. What we don't see in this trailer is Nacho or Lalo. We don't see much of them at all. Since we're focusing on Hank and Gomie going after the money, we may not see much of the Salamancas in this episode. There will be fallout after the fact though, so it'll be interesting to see how things play out there. We also don't see a lot of Kim in this trailer, but I'm very curious to see what this interesting proposition she has for Jimmy is. The one that they mentioned in the episode description. The 2 quick shots of her that we do see don't give much away as to what she'll be doing in this episode, which means we're going to have to wait and see. We see her outside of a door. I think that's the courtroom again. She has like a serious look on her face. She's probably watching Jimmy do whatever he's doing inside the courtroom. And we see a shot of her in bed. And they're just sleeping. We don't really see anything there. They look normal for the most part. I'm really hoping to get more with Mr. Acker because I really liked the couple of exchanges we had with them in episode 3, but I'm guessing that wouldn't happen until later in the season if it happens at all. As mentioned, I'm really excited to see how the Howard part of the story plays out. Just like Nacho and Kim, his story is a little bit more exciting because we don't know where he goes, how he ends up not being around anymore by the time of Breaking Bad. I really think that it's probably not Sandpiper related, why he has this current interest in Jimmy. He did mention that HHM was doing well, which was a surprise, and he was really in a bad state whenever we saw him in season 4, so this will be fun to figure out what's going on in his orbit. I mentioned Mr. Acker, and a lot of people brought up the question of wondering if Kim was actually lying to him about her past. I thought the same thing in the moment, but then, when you think about it, it does track. We know that she is self-made, so that does track that she has this kind of background that she doesn't like to talk about because it wasn't a good childhood. I went back and forth a bit, but if you do watch the behind-the-scenes video that they put out on the AMC YouTube channel, the writers talk about it as if it is true. They don't say that outright, and you can make your own decision, but to me it sounds like they're looking for how they're going to fill us in on where Kim does come from, what her history is, and that's how they refer to that scene. They don't really touch on the idea that maybe she was making it up or embellishing it, so we'll have to wait and see, but I'm leaning way more towards her being honest there. Rhea Seehorn says that she was depicting Kim doing this, like spilling her guts, where she hadn't planned to do that when she walked up to the door, so I think it's really unlikely that she might have been embellishing the story. In Mike's part of the story, they also talked about how he is basically punishing himself. And I mentioned that in my last episode video. He feels like he's responsible for letting things get out of control to where he had to kill Werner. And that bothers him, and that's understandable. We know that his motivation later in the Breaking Bad timeline is to get his money to take care of Stacy and Kaylee. So it's looking like most of his story is just going to be about how he deals with this and how he gets to where he's at with them in that timeline. So it's not that the Mike story isn't interesting to me. Of course, he's a favorite character. He's a great character. Jonathan Banks is a great actor who plays him. It's just sort of compared with everything else that's going on, his story is a little less interesting to me because we know how it ends up. But that's always the difficulty with a prequel. And Better Call Saul has surprised me in ways that I would have never imagined when I first heard about it in that dynamic. You know, they made a prequel way more interesting than I would have thought possible. So we'll see where Mike's story goes. We'll see how we get there. I'm going to end the video now. Let me know in the comments what you think. Did I miss anything? Is there anything that you're thinking about that you want to see happen? And give me some ideas for other bonus videos if you have them. Please like this video if you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again next week after the next episode drops, and I will talk to you soon.